May the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart be always acceptable in your sight, O Lord, our strength and our Redeemer. Amen. So this sermon has a lot of parts to it, so I gotta stay on task. The first thing I'm going to do with this text is, I think, because we've just begun Lent this past Wednesday, I'm thinking about actually splitting up the sermon that I was thinking about doing into, don't worry, I didn't write it all, but into three pieces, into three bits, because in a lot of ways the scripture this morning deals with three temptations that are equally powerful for us and incredibly complicated. And those are temptations of easy food, easy faith, and easy power. So I'm going to explore, next week is Nicodemus, and so it's a great Sunday to talk about faith, and the following Sunday is the Samaritan woman at the well, and we'll talk about easy power. So this morning is going to be on easy food. I was ill about a month ago, and I went to the doctor a bunch at Walmart. She moved to Walmart. It's a Walmart. It's a weird thing to go to the doctor at Walmart. It's a very good doctor, though. Anyways, and my very last trip that I was there, I was asking her about food and healthy eating, and I've been a bachelor for a while, and, you know, when I first started out, I would just make giant bowls of turkey stuffing, and I'd eat the whole, like I'd just pour the box in, and then I figured if I cut up some chicken and put that in there too, that was like a meal. And I got really overweight. My sister called it my fetus, because it just kind of, that was the first 6 months that I was living on my own. So anyway, so I've been, since I grew my fetus, I've been kind of concerned about diet and food, and so I asked her about it, and she's like, she said, just, follow the Canada Food Guide. I was like, yeah, okay. So what does that say? And she drew me a little pie chart on the doctor's paper there on where you're supposed to sit, and half of the pie chart had fruits and vegetables on it, and then another chunk for like whole grains, and then there's a small little section for dairy and meat, and candy wasn't even on the chart. So then I left the doctor's office and went into Walmart, because I could do that. And I went to the grocery section, and the Walmart grocery section is basically like any grocery store, but it was a really weird thing looking at the grocery section through the lens that I was just given by my doctor about what to eat. And, believe it or not, half of the Walmart grocery section was not filled with fruits and vegetables. Right? But in fact, and we're also used to this, we don't even really think about it, right? Like you go to the Loblaws down there, the first thing you do when you walk in is there's just a wall of chips, right, on every single side, and it has in big, like in red, it's $1, right? That's the first thing you see. And you're probably kind of hungry or thinking about food when you go in there. Walmart's the same thing. There's the deli section, but the deli section has the chickens with those potato wedge fries, right? There's always a deal. And then there's the cakes and cookies right in front. And then there's the fruits and vegetables, and they're there. But then when you go down aisle after aisle after aisle, there's a giant aisle for pop and Coke, and there's a giant aisle for chips and snacks and the little cakes and the Joe Louis. And then the frozen section is mostly frozen pizza and ice cream. And it's a really strange thing, and we're all so used to it. But it's a very confusing thing when you think about a very simple command, really, that Christ gave us to feed the hungry. It's very confusing when you think about the sheer amount of food that ultimately, a lot of you that are laughing and nodding along with me know, a lot of this food effectively is poisonous, right? And we as a society are endorsing and spending, think of the two biggest sponsors for the Olympics, right? This great event championing human health and well-being is Coke and McDonald's, right? Millions upon millions of dollars are being spent to convince us that basically poisonous a liquid like Coke and Pepsi, if it's not good for us, then it makes us think about the Olympics, or it makes us think of fun and excitement. There's some fascinating commercials now, because we all kind of know it's bad for you. You've seen those commercials, they're Kentucky Fried Chicken commercials, where the parent is confiding to us, saying, it's so hard to get the family to come together for dinner and for us all to eat as a family. It shows the kids texting and not even acknowledging that their parents are alive, right? And they're like, well, if we, when I get Kentucky Fried Chicken, my kids put down their phones and we can all be together, right? It's this wonderful thing. It's like, sure, I'm poisoning my family, but it's worth it because we're all together and we all love it, right? Brilliant. Absolutely. Because I'm like, yeah, it makes sense to me. What's more important than love, right? Physical health isn't as important as my family being together. So there's some brilliant people that are always one step ahead of us, that are being paid more than most people in this room to market poisonous food. And we're all kind of clever, and we're all kind of savvy, and we know what's going on. But there are other people who are quite vulnerable and have not been taught a lot of things about how marketing works and what is science and what isn't science. If you see a box filled with a sugary drink and it says made with real juice, we all know that's about 2%. But there are other people who don't really distinguish between the tasty carbonated, sun-kissed, what's that stuff? It's the pop Minute Maid or whatever it is. Yes, we all know what it is. C+ or something. Anyway, we're living in a world where we are savvy and aware of this as privileged people, as people with an education, as people with some time and money and things where we can go in and we can bypass some of these sections. But there are thousands and thousands of Canadians who are very, very vulnerable. If you add into that not having a lot of money, for $1.50, you can get, for example, a really big slice of pizza, right? Or you can go to the veggie section. Actually, no, there's some even better. There's some crazy deals over at Loblaws, right? You can get a full meal of tons of those potato wedges and a ton of those little chicken finger things for like what, $1.99, $2.99, I think it is. Go to the fruits and vegetables section. You can get some tomatoes and some kale lettuce, maybe some little baby carrots. A lot of people in this room are really good at cooking, and you can take cans of those things, and you can take, even to me, some of these mysterious melons. I see these melons in the fruits and vegetables sections. They look tasty. I have no clue what they are. I don't know what to do with them. Even a pineapple intimidates me. I mean, it has spikes on it. Right? But so in a way, I'm among the vulnerable in our community, but we all know that we are marketing poison and death to people who are craving food. It is complicated to say feed the hungry in our society when the vast majority of every fast food place, every restaurant, every cheap meal is really bad for us. And it creates a strange hierarchy. And we can see it happening all around our society, where to be very healthy is to be wealthy and powerful. The wealthy are monopolizing health. That's one of the reasons probably why we're becoming increasingly obsessed with being thin, right? Like it's an easy moniker. And kind of the same thing when I was in the States. People talk about Americans all being sort of overweight, but if you're at Yale University, among some very wealthy Americans, that is a healthy group of people. Then you go to the inner city, and they actually had to seek public funds. They had to seek the city council to sponsor a grocery store. It's paid for by public money to be put in the center of the inner city, because until recently, there were only fast food restaurants in the inner city. And to this day, there's still only fast food restaurants in the inner city of most American places. And a lot of these people in these communities have McDonald's every day, sometimes twice a day, from the little value meals, right, for 99. In the States, you can get them like 99 cents can get you like $3 can get you 3 little of those little junior chickens, right? That'll keep you going all day. Add another 99 cents, get a Coke full of sugar, bam, 2,000 calories, right? It is a very complicated thing for Christians to want to feed the poor. So I don't have a lot of solutions for that. You can also have I could go on for another 10 minutes about global food, and that's a whole other issue, and it's really complicated. But Jesus says, take the log out of your own eye before you take the speck out of somebody else's, and there's something that we just down the street at our local Loblaws have things to think about. So I'm going to transition into one of the things that we personally can do. I mentioned this a bit. I apologize for any of you that were at the Ash Wednesday service. I'm going to repeat some of this stuff, but it's so important. I talked about Lenten discipline. I've sought for years to find a Lenten discipline that has satisfied me. Last year I found one of the pieces of the puzzle, which is that our discipline should be something that we love, that should break our hearts, and that we shouldn't have a complicated relationship with, right? But there's more to it than that. I had a really wonderful conversation with these two guys up the street who are both Muslim, and they sell me shawarma. I get the shawarma salads, which are vaguely healthy. I cover them with that garlic sauce, though, which kind of ruins everything, but it's so good. Anyways, I was talking to them about Ramadan because Lent was coming up, and I asked them when it was, and they said it was in the summertime this year, and I asked them what they did, and they said very matter-of-factly that they give up, they don't eat from sunrise to sundown. And I thought, as a priest, I gave up David's tea last year, and how, it just didn't come anywhere close to the level of dedication and the profound effect that not eating from sunrise to sundown would have. I felt I needed to do something. And I did a lot of research looking into what Christians have done historically, fasting, and we all do basically the same thing. We tend as Christians to give up certain foods that tend to be staples and tend to be rather expensive. The Syrian Orthodox, for example, gave up meat, dairy, wine, and olive oil, which probably were the 4 most expensive foods that they could get, and they would have had a lot of grains and figs and things during Lent. This is the thing. This is the pivot that I've been missing my entire life for some reason until now. And perhaps some of you are aware of this. This kind of made my brain explode. When you fast, you save money. You have more money because you're spending less of it on expensive foods like wine and olive oil and meat and dairy. Then you take the money that you saved and you give it to the poor. Hence, fasting and almsgiving. Right? Doesn't that make perfect sense? When we eat less expensive food, we have more money to spend. So the Lenten discipline that I'm recommending to the parish, we already started it on Wednesday. I've softened it to recommend. On Wednesday, it was basically an edict or command. But is that each of you, I don't care, I don't know what it's going to be. We all have so many interesting diets and so many diet challenges and things like, gluten and allergies and all kinds of stuff. I don't know what the food is going to be. You're going to have to choose that for yourself. But find something that you have a lot that has a certain price to it that you're going to feel when you lose, but that's going to give you some extra funds when you get your groceries. And the extra money that you save on your grocery bill, you're going to spend it that day when you get your groceries. And you're going to go to different aisles and you're going to get things. Now, to be helpful, I have a bunch of these cards. On these cards is Ottawa Food Bank Most Needed Items, which I got from the Ottawa Food Bank. They also they supply all the food for the Gloucester Food Cupboard as well, so you can give directly to the food cupboard or give directly to the Ottawa Food Bank. Things like canned fish and meat and stews, canned vegetables and fruit, Coca-Cola, not on the list. Craft dinner, not on the list. But there's a lot of other things. So I'm suggesting that you put this in your wallet so that when you're at the grocery store and you've gotten all the items that you want to get and you're fasting in some way, so you've removed something from your grocery list, so you have extra cash, you take the difference, you go and you find items like this. Baby diapers are on this list, formula is on the list, peanut butter, Personal hygiene products, right? Makes a lot of sense. A lot of those things are quite expensive. Find some of those things, throw them in your cart, and either bring them to the church and put them in one of the bins, or they have bins that are there outside almost every grocery store, and you can put them in there as well. That's my suggestion for a Lenten discipline. We're supposed to be practicing three things: fasting, almsgiving, and prayer. And prayer goes without saying. At the Ash Wednesday service, I implied that we're going to be eating more terrible meals, and that will naturally draw us to prayer in our misery. So, I don't know if that'll be the case for you, but all week, the discipline that I kind of fell into was, I like to go to the Loblaws up the street for my lunch, and I just got half the lunch that I normally get. That's the other thing Christians do. They either remove certain items, or they simply just have a smaller meal or a more humble meal. Just less stuff. That also saves a lot of money, eating half as much food, or however, no, don't eat half as much food. Anyways, I did that for lunch, because I eat a lot for lunch. And so I halved my lunch, and then went and I got cans of tuna, I got cans of corn, I got some cans of fruit, and it felt fantastic. And my Lenten discipline was no longer about my self-obsession with myself and my obsession with my own personal relationship with God, and it became about my relationship with God and the wider world and the community in which I live and my relationship with that community. And it would feel fantastic for me if we all, as a parish, shared in this tradition together. Because that was the other thing I noticed with these guys is they looked at me shocked, because and it's true, every Muslim I've ever met describes Ramadan the exact same way. And I find sometimes for us as Christians, we have our own personal, individual Lenten discipline. And it's so hard sometimes for us by ourselves to keep up that discipline. Sometimes we fall off and we don't keep it up, and there's no one else doing the same thing that we're doing, and so it's there's a lot of shame involved. It can be complicated. Whereas if we all together can share in this, I think we can support each other more effectively. It feels great to share in community. This place is fantastic at doing things together. This is a good place at we do things well as a community, and it seems to stand to reason that we should include our Lenten discipline in that as something that we can do as a community. So I commend that to you to consider, to find something, and meditate upon your relationship with God and your community and your relationship with food, and our community and society's relationship with food. Amen.